Journal Night.
I hope everyone is having a good evening. Thank you very much for joining us. Tonight we're going to be discussing the never-ending argument, discussion, whatever you want to call it, the enigma that is James Tavernier and as his career as a Rangers player. I'm not going to do this alone, joined by three fantastic guests. I'll say hello to you, Doug, first of all. How are you tonight, Doug?
I'm good, thanks, Billy. How's yourself?
Again, not too bad. It's a nice day today, isn't it? So it makes you feel a wee bit better. I was here anyway. Ross, how are you tonight, mate?
Evening, Billy. Yeah, really good, mate. As was said, it's lovely and sunny here in Yorkshire. So getting all packed up, ready to go to Glastonbury. So that's a bit stressful, but it'll be worth it in the end. But I'm good, mate. I'm good. How are you?
Yeah, as I'm saying, good. Got the sun today, so that's all we can really ask for this time of year. Exactly. And my ever increasing podcast twin buddy, whatever you want to call it. Last but not least, Tomo, who're joining us tonight. How are you today, mate?
Hi, Billy. Yeah, really good tonight. Thanks very much, mate. As I said, lovely and lovely warm. Nice to see the sun shining, so make the most of it while we can. And yeah, I'm sure it's going to be a lively discussion this evening.
Well, let's kick things off with why do we even have this discussion? Well, we've been heavily touted or heavily linked that James Tavernier has been offered a contract for one of the Saudi teams, possibly to join up with old Rangers manager Steven Gerrard. Doug, can I ask you first of all, the reason we're even doing a podcast in this is because James Tavernier splits opinion in the fans so much. Why do you think that is?
There's a combination of things. I mean, there's a juxtaposition between how good he is and has been for the club against the period that he's been here, the lack of success that we've had. And for a lot of people, those things can't be separated. I saw someone, it wasn't, I can't remember if it was actually about Tavernier, but someone put a tweet up saying, if the club's had a bad season, you've had a bad season, the you being the players in question. And I think it's that kind of idea where, there's a slight inability to separate the two to some degree. He has, even myself as a big TAV fan has to admit, he has started to stumble a little bit in the latter halves of seasons for the last 2 years, and particularly this year where the last third obviously we went from being in a winning position to a losing position, largely by own doing. And as captain, he's the lightning rod for a lot of the player-based criticism. So he sort of got that as well. So I think it's a combination of those kind of main factors that keep us coming back to that. That basically split the fan base, because there's those that do look at the specifics about him in terms of his contribution, and then there's those that are just looking at the fact that it doesn't matter what he's done, the club's not winning.
Ross, I'll open the question up to yourself, but is it fair that there is so much debate over James Tavernier's career at Rangers? Why does he split opinion so much?
Well, I think he splits my opinion, to be honest, Billy. There's times when I look back and reflect wistfully about the goals and contributions and big moments he's contributed to that we've had, in successful moments over the past few years. But I think the problem now is that he is associated with failure, unfortunately. The clips we've all seen of him being disappointed after a game, or it's disappointing after a game. And I think he symbolizes the old Rangers, or the status quo of Rangers. So I think, without going too much detail into his numbers and contributions, I think a lot of people see him as that consistent member of the team in a failing team and the captain. So therefore some blame has to go there. Now, I'm not going to sit here and say that everything is his fault and that he is the key man that has contributed to our downfall, but we've kind of bottled 2 or 3 seasons now when he's been captain. And I remember a couple of seasons when Gerrard was there, and after Christmas we bottled it. And this year again, it's come round to some relatively simple games. You would hope that we seem to have bottled it. And I think that is the team's on the team's head. But I think as captain and as someone that's been there for long enough now, there has to be some accountability. You know, managers at the end of the day come and go like nobody's business these days, and they take accountability. But also there's a role of a captain in there, and I think he gets more lenience than what a manager would. But at some point, the sword does have to fall. Regardless of that, I think he's been a fantastic servant. I know that's a very weird thing to say, but I think this is kind of the conundrum that a lot of Rangers fans have, is that he has been such a great contributor from his goals and assists. We'll probably get into the detail a little bit more about, you know, how he's played on the pitch, but for me, I'm torn. So how can I expect Rangers fans, you know, other Rangers fans not to be torn also?
Yeah. Tomo, again, feel free to jump in on that same subject, but I feel a lot of it's probably been said what you've been thinking anyway. But consider this season, because this is what we really need to go on. This season will be as close as we possibly got for an example of what he's going to be like next season. So has he done enough? Has he contributed enough match winning, you know, performances or moments this season for you?
Yeah, I mean, I echo what Doug and Ross has already said. In terms of why is the fan base split, I think Ross knocked it on the head there, that he's been there. He's been the one consistent over the last nearly 9 years now, when we have pretty much failed. It's not all down to him, but fans need someone to blame. Him and Connor Goldson have been there probably the longest, and they get the brunt of the backlash when we don't win. Coming back to your question about match winning performances, it was his goal in the cup final against Aberdeen, you know, that won us our cup last season. I think this season we've started seeing Tav regress in terms of his attacking abilities. He doesn't seem to be making those back post runs anymore, getting in late. And I think it's just a case of age catching up with him, and not quite simply not being able to do what he did 3, 4, 5 years ago, which is normal. His body's slowing up. But as I say, I've been a massive fan of Tav for years, and I've always said it, that to replace him is going to be nigh on impossible. And you've got to remember, we signed him along with Martin Waghorn. I think the sum was about 250 grand. And for what he's contributed to Rangers, I would say we've more than got our money's worth out of him.
Where he does seem to help us, Ross, and where we kind of look for his leadership is when we go a goal behind. And this last few seasons, we've been going a goal behind quite consistently, actually, quite more than I would like. Think of the Kilmarnock game, for example. We go behind there and he gets the equaliser. Is that, how do we replace a lightning rod for the team like him?
The thing is, we have to rip the plaster off at some point. This guy, by probably no fault of his own, but has been playing as a right back. Now, there's a lot of arguments out there to say that perhaps he isn't a right back by trade, and therefore, you know, he would have probably had more goal contributions further up the pitch. But kind of how do you fit him in? Various different arguments. But by his trade, he's a right back. We need to change the way that we play as a football team. We can't rely on this guy to come up with the goals and contributions that he has given us. Now, you know, what one part of me thinks that, the other part of me thinks, do you not just build a team around those goal contributions, because he's been our top goal scorer for X amount of years now? Do you not just think, okay, let's give him a free role and perhaps look at the way our formation is to give him more support? So if he is committed forward, then you can, you know, we're a bit more reliable at the back. He has dug us out of many holes, but at some point we have to deal with that and try and look at how we can recapture those goals elsewhere. And arguably our front line forward, you know, sort of, I guess your low line 8 or 6 forward has not contributed anywhere near enough. And therefore that has, Tavernier's goals have covered up what has been in essence poor recruitment from those forward lines. So we've scraped through at times. We've, you know, you talk about his goal contributions. I just can't help thinking about the Europa League run And those goals that he scored, popping up at the back post time and time again, the goal at home against Dortmund, just iconic Rangers goals that, all of us will probably remember for a very long time, and rightly so. No one could take that away from him. But the way we move forward, in my opinion, Billy, is we need to look at the forward lines and how we take a little bit of the strain away from that position and that reliance, and look at progressing the ball forward, keeping it in the sort of the final third, if you will, and accessing more goals through our forward lines. It's the only way we can look at a sustainable future without Tavernier, which will, if it's not this window, it'll be the next or the one after, or he'll be phased out. But it will happen at some point.
Yeah. Doug, is it fair on him as the player to be the one that we all look to, the fans, the players? I can't think of anybody else when we got a goal behind that is going to do anything. It's either going to come through something he sets up, or again, a free kick or a penalty. Is that really fair on him? Are we expecting too much of him?
No, I mean it's not fair on him, and it's not fair on, or it's no good for the team as a whole. The main argument that I do subscribe to in terms of the sort of cold turkey approach of just getting rid of him completely is that you therefore force someone else to have to step up into that role, or at least hope to. My worry is that in that version we don't have anyone that steps up, and we're left without, which is why, I mean, regardless of whether he stays or goes, if he is going to stay, I still think, like Ross says, there has to be a concerted focus on transitioning the team, even if he's staying. Because my sort of ideal scenario for James Tavernier over the next 2 years is that he stays and is phased out the team, but over those 2 years we get a couple more trophies that bolsters his rep a bit with those that don't have any truck with him anymore, and then he gets his testimonial and gets to leave in the manner that I think he deserves to. But I mean, that's the thing. It's the will someone step up? Do we have that trust in recruitment that will bring in players that will fill those gaps? Because it's not just the goals and assists; it's the creative aspect, the amount of chances that he creates for the team that we don't take. There's a lot made about the fact that Dessers had the most, I think it was 23 big chances missed. So the player that created the most big chances, both for us and in the league, was James Tavernier. So you've got a combination there of, we've got someone who's making chances and we've got someone that's missing them. So if we bring in a striker next year that starts banging goals, that's great. But are we going to bring in someone that will create the chances for them to do that as well?
Yep. Tomo, just along with the lines of what Doug was saying there, phasing them out, we'll talk about possible transfer fees later on. We've got that as a subject to talk about later on, but do you look to phase them out the way Doug's suggesting, or take advantage of getting something back from him? I think it was, sorry, I apologise who mentioned this, but the transfer fee of 250,000, do we really need to worry about getting anything back from him with what he's given us?
Yeah, I mean, I think I've said it before in a previous podcast. I think this season needs to be the start of him being phased out. I do think he still has contributions to make, but we need to start forward planning and have someone coming into that position. As for the money side of it, depends on what someone's offering us for him, really. If it's worthwhile for the club, then yeah, sell him on. Nobody's bigger than the club, and we need the money in. And just going back to his sort of goal contributions, in no world, in no universe should a right back be your team's top goal scorer. I know he takes a number of penalties, but even so, the best teams in the world, they don't look to their fullbacks to be the main man to dig them out of the hole. Real Madrid don't look to Danny Carvajal to pull them out of a hole. Man City don't look to Kyle Walker to pull them out of a hole. Yet we seem to rely on Tav to dig us out of holes. And if you're a forward player, it should be embarrassing looking at your right back as being the one who's pulling us out of things and getting us results, getting us over the lines. He's at an age now where, all being ideal, it would have been Nathan Patterson a couple of seasons ago coming in, but obviously we couldn't turn down the fee for him. So it's just who replaces Tav, who takes his place, because it's all well and good saying sell him or phase him out, but have we got anyone that can contribute to the team and do a better job than what he does?
Thanks for highlighting Williams' comment there, Ross, because I think that's my sticking point with the phase out thing. He's on a high salary. I don't know if it's 40k a week, but he'll be on a high salary, if not the top paid player. That's going to cause a kind of disharmony in the squad when you've maybe got players that are playing week in, week out on maybe a third of his wages, and he's still picking up, his full salary. So, Tom, just comment on that if you don't mind the salary aspect of it.
Yeah, no, it's a fair point, and I think it's going to be an issue for a few players that we might be looking to get rid of. They are on high salaries, and who's going to pay it? I get we can't, just stick someone on that amount of money on the bench each week, but at the same time, as Ross had said, we've got to pull that plaster off at some point. We can't keep relying. I mean, I think what is he coming up to 33 this season, and while that's not massively old in football terms these days, the job and contributions that he gives us, he's not going to keep being able to do that week in, week out. So we're going to have an alternative that comes in and plays games, so that A, they're ready to play when needed, and B, it gives Tav a bit of a rest. Since he's been with us, apart from one season or one back end of a season when Nathan Patterson came in, he's pretty much been available for these whole 9 years. So he's playing 60, 65 games a season. That takes its toll. And at 33 years of age, I just don't think he can do that to the level that it has been. So we definitely need that alternative. And as I say, if someone comes in with the money for him and the club are willing to accept it, then so be it. As Ross said, pull that plaster off and we get moving again.
Ross, were you wanting to come in there? I don't know if you're just putting your hand up out of...
Yeah, just a couple of things, a couple of interesting comments that come up I thought would be worth flagging. We had one here, so we could have turned down the Patterson money. We should have sold Tav years ago, but nobody wanted him, which is telling in itself. I think that Patterson money, I don't think anyone could turn that down at that point in time, given that he'd played a handful of times and it was touching 20 million. I think at that point you start thinking, right, I'm sorry, he could be the next Messi, and 20 million would talk to us at that age. So not sure on that one. There was another one as well where the masters of overpaying weekly wages. So potentially an argument in there. I guess he's been with us 9 years. He's the club captain. He's taken us to European finals. He's won us a league. He's won us various trophies. That does have to come to an end at some point. But, arguably every year when it comes around to sitting around a table with the manager, you have that conversation to assess your salary, don't you? And so naturally those 9 years of employment will have spiraled up anyway. Doesn't mean we'll be doing that moving forwards. We've seen the offloading of Borna Barisic and Lundstrom. Arguably there was conversations, or we've heard rumours that Lundstrom was offered a deal and decided to go elsewhere because we probably wouldn't meet his salary demand. So I'm hoping that the new team in place aren't going to be sort of bent over and bow down to these sort of, I guess, experienced players.
Well, we'll come to you on that kind of point, Doug, because I guess you were suggesting the phasing them out, and I'm bringing up the alternative point that that's quite a lot of money. Is there something to be said for his experience and his leadership could still be valuable for the younger players coming through, that 40,000 a week might still be worth it to us?
Yeah, I mean, first and foremost, I don't entirely agree with the idea that younger players will be upset. I mean, is Enciala really coming in and looking at Tavernier's position within the club and everything he's done and all he's contributed and turning around and saying, well, how come he's on so much more money than me? at 21? I don't think so. I think the fact that he's been here for almost a decade, he's a huge senior player, he's a big player now in the club's history, a Hall of Fame player. It would take some balls, I think, for a young player to turn around and go, why is he getting paid so much money? But that side, I mean, the thing with phasing them out, I think, like, so this it's been done in other teams, like players growing older and slowly playing a little bit less, or maybe, like, obviously there's ongoing talk about him playing in other positions and things, and maybe you could utilise him for that, although I'm not necessarily a big fan of that. But I do think it can be done because of the fact he's a unique player, and it would be something that would still need to be under review. I mean, you would still be looking at, you know, if you do cut his games by half, say, does he still contribute in a similar kind of way? Obviously, we're talking about his consistency and how much. I mean, you can tie this to the wages as well. I mean, he's been here for 9 seasons, and he's never in any season played less than 46 games. And 5 of the 9, he's played 50 or more, and 4 of them 55 or more. For a club who's been as concerned about injuries as us over the past few years, it's a ridiculous level of consistency that I think earns him a little bit of leeway in his pay. The season just gone is his highest scoring season ever with the club, which we do have to balance that in fairness. That it's also the highest number of penalties he's had in any season, so there is that. But until this year, he did have a higher than average conversion rate. So, I mean, you're touching on experience. I think those types of moments are when, you know, having a player like that can be important. But I do accept that there is a benefit to the, let's say, the cold turkey method, as I like to say, which is the one I think. Because there's the other aspect of, does he stay captain if he stays, which a lot of people are obviously on both sides of. I think if he stays captain, and so if you want to change that, then you also have to, I think, just draw a line under it and go, right, okay, this has been your time, thank you very much, and away you go, and then you pick who your new leader of your new era is going to be.
Let's touch on, it's been brought up a few times, his overall performance and contribution from the whole time he's been here. I apologise to everyone. I'd hoped to get in from work a bit earlier to be able to do a graphic for this, so unfortunately I didn't have time, but I'll just read you some of the stats, and maybe Ross, if you could comment on what you think of these. So according to Transfer Market, he's played 460 games for Rangers, scored 125 goals, 129 assists, and played over 40,000 minutes. I mean, what can you say about that, Ross?
It's stunning, and it just baffles me. And do you know what? I kind of some days just wish I could just turn Twitter off. I know I could, but I need to get that fix of daily rumours and gossip and hearing all the tripe that's being spoken. But I do hear the sort of the amount of garbage, emotionally reactive garbage that is applied to James Tavernier. And look, people are frustrated. People deserve more, and we all deserve more from our football club. That's inevitable, and it will happen. You know, that will improve. We've got to trust the manager. We are trusting the manager, getting the right people in the door, hearing stuff today about new people in the door as well. And it's all encouraging. The players we're looking at, everything seems to be going the right way. That frustration and energy that people have, where they just direct it towards, and another thing that frustrates me about it is they direct it towards Connor Galton and James Tavernier as though they're sort of Siamese paired at the hip people. They're not. They're very different people, and you're allowed to have different opinions about them. They might be core experienced players that have been here for a while and underperforming, but that's as far as the correlation goes, as far as I'm concerned. They're two, unique individuals who contribute in different ways to the club, both of which have had very successful periods at Rangers and seem to be tailing off a bit. That there are some correlations, but Tavernier, for me, that the stats that you said there, Billy, absolutely astounding. I made a few notes just earlier just to refresh my memory as well. And, even the sheer amount of games that he's played, he's in the last 4 seasons, his goal contributions have always been over 28. So that's goals and assists. As you rightly said, Doug, 24 goals this season alone. It's just absolutely remarkable. And we will miss it. I know it's an overused term, but this guy has been incredible. I don't stand for the concept that he shouldn't be in the Hall of Fame. He is in the Hall of Fame, and he rightly should be in the Hall of Fame for his contributions. We will never have a defender that contributes in an attacking sense like James Tavernier, and the Scottish Premiership will never have that. I dare say that a lot of leagues, and it's a very, very rare breed that someone will come out that has the contributions and delivers consistently in an attacking way. Now, look, the defensive side of things, I think if we were to evaluate him defense and attack, I'd give him 11 out of 10 from an offensive point of view, and 5 or 6 from a defensive point of view. And it's always been a bit of a stumbling block for him. Doug, I think on a previous pod, you'd said something about some of the stats for his defensive traits, and actually they weren't anywhere as near as bad as what the sort of happy clappers come out and say and sort of
100%.
We'll like to spout. I don't know if you know what they are, Doug, just off the top of your head to illustrate that.
I've not got them off the top of my head, but it's more just things like people that just say can't defend, which is just patently incorrect. I mean, the one that the easy one that springs off the top of my head was in January he was statistically the best defender in Europe. So I mean, that's not it's not a made up stat. That was put together by a betting company because people want to make money, and so he was the guy to bet on defensively in the entire of Europe at that time. And I'm not suggesting he's the best defender in Europe. Of course he's not. But when you looked, if you go to a place like FB Ref that do their scouting reports for varying stats, they have a really good one that compares players over the past year against their compatriots, their peers, which for us is usually the Champions League, Europa League, and top 5. And he always stacks up well. He's not the best. No one would ever say he was the best defender in the world. But he's certainly not the worst. And he easily compares with the type of players of European level that we would meet regularly.
Thanks for that, Doug. Do you want to comment, Tomo, on just these general overall stats there?
Yeah, No, I do. Whereas those stats, I say, the strikers out there that don't have those numbers, I say it's phenomenal. Rangers haven't been successful these last few years because of James Tavernier. If we had more players like Tavernier in the team, in the squad over the last few years, we would have won more trophies. If you look at it, look at the other side of the city, Celtic. If James Tavernier played for Celtic and he had those stats, he would be getting lauded as probably the greatest right back that has ever played in Scottish football. As a fan base, we are, I think, extremely harsh at times. I'm not saying we should settle for second best, but the reason Rangers haven't been successful isn't because of James Tavernier. Again, you look at Scotland last night, they've got Anthony Ralston playing right back. If James Tavernier was Scottish, had a Scottish granny, whatever it may be, he'd be walking into that team and we might have put on a bit of a better showing. But I don't understand the hate that he gets from a portion of the fans, because what he's contributed to us for such a small transfer fee as well has been incredible. We might not have won the trophies that we have won without him, because he is the man that we've looked to dig us out of the holes over the seasons, and that's what needs to change. We need more players to step up and go, I'm going to do this, I'm going to do that, instead of just relying on Tavernier will pop up with a free kick, or go back to sort of even last season at Celtic Park. He scored a couple of goals there when we looked down and out, and he's came, scored 2 goals, got us back into the game. No one else was doing that. And to look for your right back to be digging out, it just can't keep continuing to happen. But his stats are It's crazy the amount of goal contributions that he has, and as Ross rightly says, he's in the Hall of Fame on merit. You put him in a Rangers team of the past that was successful, we wouldn't be having this conversation. We'd be saying, as and when he leaves, thank you very much for everything, good luck, and with fond memories. And I think in years to come, people will have fond memories of him. I think just at the moment, because we haven't been successful, he's been here for that period. It's an easy stick to beat him with.
Doug, Curry in the comments a few back had said another stat which we haven't brought up yet, and that is 3 trophies out of a possible 21. Does James Tavernier bear the brunt of that or bear the blame of that?
That highlights another pet peeve of mine. James Tavernier has won 5 trophies with Rangers. I appreciate that the top level trophies are the ones that matter, but at the same time, it's not his fault we weren't in the top division when he signed. He can only win the titles and the trophies that he is eligible to compete in. And in that regard, he has 5 trophies. But that's a small point, but it's one that annoys me constantly. I mean, like Ross said, I mean, there is always a level of accountability, and particularly for him because he is the captain. So there isn't a level of accountability that does lie with him. He needs to, he's the one that's meant to try and drag us over that line. But the key issue that I think is different when you're comparing James Tavernier to, because this comes up obviously within captain debates, everything else, is that ultimately he's been captain at a unique period of time in our history, almost throughout, apart from 1 or 2 other periods we've had that have been similar, where we've gone for like a decade and won very little. We've been lucky to be a club that wins trophies year in, year out. It just happens that he's at a time where, for circumstances far and way beyond his control, the team has not been as strong as it could be. And like Thomas said, if we had more players like him, we would win. We would have won more stuff. And a lot of fans seem to come at it from the opposite way. There's a comment I would like to respectfully disagree with, but that says we need players that can beat Celtic. In that regard, he's a loser. Well, I can understand, particularly on the back end of this particular season, where he did have a few shockers in the Old Firm games. But I mean, more often than not, Tavernier is the one player in the Old Firm games that does that bit extra, that keeps us in contention. Even in this season, we were 2-0 down in the 3-3 game, and he gets the goal to bring us back in. We were 2-0 down in the game. Was it the game before that, or 2 games before that? And he scored, albeit near the very end, but again, gave us some hope in the last couple of minutes. He's the one that does that in those games. And the problem is that we've not got enough other players to help. If we had more Taverniers doing that, then some of those games might have ended as draws or wins for us. But there's only so much that he can do. There's only one man on the planet who's actively playing football right now that has more goals and assists against Celtic, and that's Neymar. So he's in pretty good company in that regard. No Rangers player comes close in terms of goal contributions, or in terms of that consistency either. So I don't think it's fair to say that he's a loser because Rangers aren't beating Celtic, because it's not James Tavernier against 11 Celtic players. There's 10 other people there that have to share in that blame as well.
I need to get you on a podcast with you and Curry on just on your own. We can have a back and forth about that. Ross, just can you comment on that stat? And either it's 5 out of 21 or 3 out of 21. How do you think that's fair before we move on to another subject or another point?
Yeah, I mean, look, I guess I see both sides of it. It's 3 that really contribute to our, I guess, parameters of success. Yes, I agree with Doug that he has, and I saw a comment coming on, what these stats don't count because it's only a Diddy League. Well, where do you want him to play? He can't just turn up in France and start playing. He plays in this league, so therefore he can only compete in this league. So that's what we have to benchmark him on. The ones in the other leagues, you can give or take. It was a way back, but that's what part of the charm and the sort of admiration I have for the guy, and no doubt part of his contributing factors towards being a Hall of Famer is that he has brought us through that and shown leadership through difficult times. Some of the amazing Rangers speeches that we hear is that there will be dark times ahead, but we'll prevail through, or to paraphrase it. And he's been there as a constant throughout. I guess one question I'd like to pose to the chat is, if we had signed James Tavernier at the start of the season and he had come in, played 58 games, scored 24 goals and assisted 12 games, would we be sat here saying this guy's a loser? Because I think that's the problem. We don't have the context of what this guy's doing. We're too used to it. And we are too used to it. What you'd be saying is, okay, let's work on it. Let's get someone in beside him who can read the game a little bit differently to Tavernier, or you play a slightly different formation where you're sitting defender pulls back into right back like a Trent Alexander-Arnold does, or whatever. You find a way to make this guy work. Now, I'm not saying it's the long-term view, and the guy's obviously coming up to 33, so it's not a long-term plan, but just a bit of context, just to add to actually what this guy has given the club, and that the information that we're able to read out today shows that the guy is contributing far more than anyone else in that team. So for me, it's really unfair to blame this guy. That doesn't say it's not the right time for him to go, but I'm not going to stand here and take people saying that he's useless, he's been rubbish for X amount of seasons, because it's not true. It's just simply not true.
Can I stay with you then, Ross? Because what he does get labelled with is he's not a Rangers captain. Now, we probably have had pods on what makes a Rangers captain. We probably will still have other pods on what makes a Rangers captain. For you, and I'll go around the panel on this, has he been a good Rangers captain? And
yeah, fantastic Rangers captain. He's galvanised the team. He has been a very core member of a team that has had some success, not a lot of success, not loads of success, but there's been so many factors that have played into that are beyond James Tavernier's control. You look at Rangers captains of old when there have been difficult times, and would you say that that's a Rangers captain? Would you say that what do they need to be? Do they need to be Scottish, 6 foot, and sing a certain song at a weekend, or what do they need to be? Because I'm struggling to see how this guy isn't a Rangers captain. I don't. If he's not, I don't understand what a Rangers captain is. If it's just someone who happy to give a headbutt here or there, or eat sawdust for dinner, or what, I don't know what he needs to be. Do you know what I mean? Like it's not the captains of old that would be, go out with the shiniest boots because he cares the most. That's just not what it is. The guy is a captain. He's been a leader. He's taken us through very difficult points, and whoever he does hand it over to, it's going to be a sad day for Rangers. It'll definitely make me feel sad thinking about a future without Tavernier. He's been, I can't credit the guy enough. He does have his flaws. I'm not saying he doesn't, but for me, he's been a successful captain and a very good one.
Tomo, your opinion?
Yeah, 100% agree with Ross. When it comes to what makes a Rangers captain, be interested in people's opinions, because what I usually see is there's not enough screaming and shouting and basically telling other players they're garbage and they've not been doing enough. That's not the modern game anymore. It might have been 30 years ago, flying into a blood and thunder challenge and leaving someone's leg hanging off. But the fact is, he's been the captain since Lee Wallace left. So that's 1, 2, 3, probably about 5 managers that have kept him as captain. The players are more than happy with him as captain. So I think, yes, he is a Rangers captain. And as I say, in over the years of watching Rangers, there's not been many better right backs that contribute that he does, the contributions that he gives. And as Ross has said, the pillaring that he gets is a bit much, I think, at times, and it will be a sad day when he leaves. And whoever we do replace him with, I hope they have his durability and is available for the games every season, rather than the injury-prone people that we seem to have signed over the last couple of years. And I'll just go back to something that was said earlier as well. When we won the league, Tavernier was brilliant, but it was no coincidence that Ryan Jack was fit pretty much all that season. And you've seen the way he played, he would fill in for Tav. Whenever Tav went forward, Jack would fill in. And over the last couple of seasons, that's what we've missed. We've missed someone doing that little bit of work so that Tav can do his best work in the final third. And yeah, as I say, Ryan Jack was a massive loss the last couple of seasons for us and for Tavernier.
Doug, and also get your opinion on this, but I'll just say one thing. I don't need a captain to do what John Lundstrom does and gets himself sent off at Celtic Park to prove that, you know, he's the tough man and he's the leader. But what's your thoughts on Tav and being the captain?
Yeah, I want to just very, very quickly touch on a comment that saying about my point earlier about comparing stats and saying you can't compare Scotland to Germany. I think you can. The reason that I specifically mentioned that FBref thing is because it also compares European football, which is more even footing. But at the same time, that you can't tell me that you can't compare Rangers and Celtic to the bottom half of most of the other leagues. These are teams, the type, you know, we're coming up against teams at the top end of these leagues in Europe, and in many cases over the past 5 years are beating these teams. So I don't think it's fair to say that you can't compare. Sure, you can't compare it to the absolute tip top teams. You've got to remember there's a bottom half to every league, and so there's comparisons there. In terms of the captain aspect, again, the default comparator that people fall to when comparing captains, and I think you see that in most of the discussions I've watched on YouTube, is they talk about success, which, you know, that's perfectly valid. That's the goal of the club and thusly the captain and the manager. But at the same time, that is a team, you know, thing, and that is the biggest hindrance, if you like, that Tavernier has in terms of captaincy, and that argument. Because name me a Rangers captain that's played with as, I don't like saying as low a caliber of player, but you know, look, for example, people that were compared with in our pod were players like Barry Ferguson. I mean, look at the players Barry Ferguson was surrounded with while he was captain, and then look at the players that James Tavernier is surrounded with when he's captain. You can't just go, well, Barry Ferguson won loads of trophies, he's the better captain. It's just not a one-to-one comparator. The thing that makes the difference for me, if you're really drilling in, is the captain's there to eke out that little extra from the team and to be that person who can make the difference. And to me, Tavernier does do that. The problem is that he can only eke out so much from the squads that he's been in. So, you know, he can get us back into a game with Celtic, but maybe he can't win the entire game on his own. You know, whereas if captains in the past were getting you back into a game, they were surrounded with a much better team of players who would then go, we're back in this, and then drive it on into something else. And to me, that's the key difference that I think needs to be taken into account when people are thinking about Tavernier's captaincy, and the fact that there's a lack of trophies attached to it, is the fact that, well, you know, you could pick out loads of examples of him getting equalisers, getting us back into games. I mean, you only just go back to the beginning of this season. He scored the goal to get us past the first round in Europe when we were struggling. He scored the goal at 2-0 against PSV to potentially get us back in the game, albeit we lost the goal 5 seconds later. You know, he does those things, but you need to have players around you who can not only you can get on board with that with you as the captain and take the team forward.
Well, I think we've given good opinions, or we've given a good account of what our opinions are on Tavernier as the player, the stats, the captain. Ross, I'm going to ask this in kind of two sections. What is James Tavernier's transfer value, do you think, if we just let it be known to, you know, any club around, you know, England, whatever, that he was available? And how does that figure compare to what we'd accept from a Saudi team? What do you think the difference would be?
So I guess British teams or sort of European teams, I would think would probably be looking around, I'd say anywhere between 4 million and 5 million, or 3.5 and 5 million, maybe around that figure. I think Saudi would probably be at probably 6 to 7 million, I would think, given that he's still got a contract to run out. I don't think, his age obviously plays into it, but you see, and I'm not saying he's at this level, but you see Pepe getting man of the match performances in the European Championships. And if you can get Tavernier into the right team with the right players around him who can allow him to make the mistakes that he does, or not contribute defensively the way he does, then you've still got a cracking player for 2 or 3 years. There was, I had a question to you, Billy, actually, and I was thinking about it there, because I'm seeing a lot of comments about that we should have probably sold him 4 or 5 years ago. Do you think we would have been a better team without Tavernier?
No, I don't think so. I mean, I'm not immune to his failings at times, but there's just who you'd have to say that there was a player who's going to do, influence the team in the same way that he's done for me to say yes to that, because nobody really, other than 55 and even the run to Seville, who else stepped up, or who else does step up on such a regular basis? So for me, I'm glad he's been here. I realise he's divisive. I can see that in the comments. But see, what I do disagree with, Ross, is when I mentioned there about what transfer fee, there was a couple of comments, about 5 ginger, was it 5? No, so it wasn't curry, it was 5 ginger bottles in a packet of Monster Munch. Why do we put our players, as a fan base, why do we put our players down and devalue them so much? He's contributed so much. I mean, he was on weekly, he was on Europa League team of the week.
Yeah.
And we'll say, we'll give us Monster Munch and ginger bottles. I don't understand it. I mean, you might not be your cup of tea. He might not do everything you want in a captain. He maybe has defensive frailties that you don't like. But why are we devaluing him to the level of Monster Munch and Iron Brew, which I do like? But it's just strange to me that's why the other side of the city get good transfer fees in for the players, and why we continually get 1 or 2 Bassey and sorry, I can't remember the right back, Patterson aside, we get poor transfer fees. I would be looking for those figures you just said there, Ross, 5 to 7 million. Transfer market, okay, it's not always right. It's got them valued at 6.5. Sometimes they're a wee bit inflated, but why shouldn't we be looking for that for a player who contributes as much, and then has his top scoring season last season? So I'm getting myself worked up about it now, but I don't know why we do that. We continually do it with even Ryan Kent towards the end, just give him away, let his contract run out. I don't understand it. But getting it back onto the transfer fee, Tomo, am I right in what I was saying there? Should we be looking for a decent fee for him, or just getting him out the door for you? Would that be the main thing? That's if you do want him out the door. Sorry, I'm assuming that.
Yeah, I mean,
opinion.
I'd say I've said it before, Billy. Every player's got their price, and for what he contributes to the team, I think 6 million is fair considering his age. But he still contributes to the team. He's not someone who's just languishing in the reserves, and we need to just get him off the wage bill. And you said there before about how the other side of the city, sort of allowed their players, and you go back to Paul McStay. He didn't win anything with Celtic. I think he might have won 2 trophies, but look at how he's viewed. He's Captain Marvel, one of the best midfielders ever, the potential, etc., etc. Whereas our players who contribute, like say, some people just want them out the door, and it's like, it frustrates me that we don't value our players, and then we wonder when it comes to it why no one ever wants them, or no one gives us any transfer fees for them. I mean, what hope have we got when our own fan base are saying these guys are crap? We'll just give them away, and as I say, it's frustrating. But I think 5-6 million would be a fair fee for the league that he's played in over the last near enough 10 years. And I say the contributions that he gives to us, he is still worth something. So certainly wouldn't just be giving him away.
And Doug, your opinion on the transfer fee side of things? Should we be looking at a decent fee for him if he is indeed going to go?
Absolutely. I mean, I don't know if maybe as high as 6 myself, but he's a unique player who, and particularly if he's going to somewhere like Saudi, where they're partly buying these players as status players to try and elevate their league. And Tavernier is just a status player. He's the highest scored defender in the history of the UK. That has there's a marketing value to that by itself. Never mind the football aspect. As you say, he still contributes goals. He still contributes assists. He still contributes to the team as a whole. So there's plenty of value there. I mean, odd transfers as well. I mean, someone mentioned earlier in the season, no one's ever come in, been interested in him. That's also not true. And that's another thing I see a lot on Twitter. Rangers, as far back as 2018, Rangers turned down a bid for Tavernier for West Brom. He's had Newcastle been interested. There was talk of a lot of European clubs taking notice after the European run. There's been plenty of chatter about teams being interested in James Tavernier throughout the years. But he's happy. Rangers have had very little interest in selling him. And as far as I'm aware, he's never had any interest in leaving. And why would he, given all he's been getting to do, club captain and all that jazz? So I think it's that fact that he still contributes that is an important point. I mean, someone talked about, how many games has he won against Celtic? Well, I mean, again, that's the same thing about, he's been part of a team that has not won games against Celtic, but he's contributed in those games. I had someone on Twitter claiming that we're having a discussion, shall we say, as to whether Tavernier was a better right back than, or just a better player for Rangers in general than Kirk Broadfoot. I was suggesting that Tavernier was the better of the two, and the person described him as having had a 10 times better Rangers career than Tavernier, which I don't understand. And when I went back to that, because I was sitting there thinking, well, Broadfoot played in a better team and a better time. When I actually looked at Broadfoot's record against Celtic, both of them 60% lose rate against Celtic, Tavernier and Kirk Broadfoot. Tavernier has a 24% win rate against Celtic to Broadfoot's 21%. So I think sometimes people pick players out of the past just because they were in a better scenario and just assumed that they're better when that's not always necessarily the case. I mean, you're talking about the idea that he's. Someone also said in one of the comments, he's been in every team that's been losing. He's the one consistent thing that's always there, thus, implying therefore that he's the problem. Well, if that's the case, then surely the opposite is true. Daniel Prodan must be a great Rangers player. We won a treble while he was here. He didn't play a single game, but he was there. He was consistently there, so he must have been great. That's just not how it works.
Well, we're getting close to finishing time, guys. Let me just ask everyone in the chat to give just a one-word answer: stay or leave, in regards to James Tavernier and whether he should stay with us into next season. But I'm going to go around the group here. Doug, I'll start with you. For you, don't try and balance opinions out or whatever. Just should we, if we have an offer for James Tavernier, should we sell him or should we keep him next season?
It depends on the offer. Tomo is right in saying every player has his price, and if we were to get 4 or 5 million, then I'd have to concede that there's value in that sale. The same as I wanted to keep Sakala, but for the value that we were offered for him, the sale was too good. So in that scenario, accounting for where he is in his career, that would be lost a headphone. That would be a fair option. Although my preference would be to keep him.
You give me every single opinion there. Ross, let's go to you. I hope I've worded the question right. That's maybe where the problem is. Stay or leave?
No, it'll be me.
I'm allowed to fluff it out a little bit, just
On you
to
go,
add a
mate.
little bit.
Of
Yeah.
course.
I think his time at Rangers has come to a natural end with the new manager, with the new players that we're getting in. So I think it suits him, and I think it suits Rangers that we part ways. But it would be with a heavy heart that happens. And one of the only comments that I've seen that I actually agree with in the chat said that we don't want to tarnish his reputation, and I think that's fair. Whether or not people like the reputation or not, he will go down as a Rangers. You could argue a Rangers legend, a Rangers icon, whatever you want to call it. So for me, I think it's a natural time to part ways with him, and be thankful for what he's given the club.
Tom, I'll let it come to you. Wonder if you can waffle as well, or you can give a one-word answer.
I'm just going to say I totally agree with Ross. I think he's put it perfectly there. I'd be sad to see him go, but I think it's come to a natural point now where Clement needs to bring in his own players, his own style of play, and the attacking players need to step up their game. But 100%. I think Ross put it perfectly there, to be honest with you.
Well, look, guys, unless anyone has any other particular points they wanted to bring out, I'll go around. Please feel free to mention what this said point would be, but give your goodbyes as well. Doug, I'll come to you first.
Don't offer me the opportunity to talk more about James Tavernier. I think we've covered all the main points, to be honest. So thank you to everyone in the chat for comments. Lots of really good stuff. Let's say it's a divisive thing, so I think there's loads of good chat to have. So I enjoyed it. Thanks very much, guys.
And Ross?
Yeah, likewise. You asked us for a definitive answer, yes or no, but there's so much more to it than that, isn't there, in actual sense? So thanks very much for hosting, Billy, lads. Thanks for being on the pod this evening, and to everyone contributing, whether we like your opinions or not. I guess we're all Rangers fans, aren't we? And we just want what's best for the club. So whatever that conclusion is, then I'm all on board for it.
Tomo?
Yeah, no, thanks again for having me. It's been a really good chat, and as I thought it would be, it'd be very divisive. And thank you to everyone in the comments for getting involved. It's great when there's so many opinions flying back and forward. And as Ross says, we're all Rangers fans. We all want the best for the club, and hopefully, whatever happens with James Tavernier, whether he's here this season or whether he moves on, hopefully it's a successful season for us. And as I say, thank you again for having me. It's been a great chat.
Well, thank you very much, Tomo. Let me thank once again all three of the co-panels tonight, Doug, Ross and Tomo. Thank you for giving your time to this pod. Thank you everyone that watched along, and especially thank you to all the people that commented, because it really gives us kind of eggs us on for things to talk about and to bring points out. Again, may everybody like, subscribe, tell your friends about us, and remember, every night is a Rangers Journal night. Good night.